In April 1988, a small town became the epicenter of one of the most bewildering mysteries of the modern era. On a bright Tuesday morning, Mr. Hemington, a well-loved geography teacher, led his class of 23 students into the woods for an outdoor lesson. The outing was meant to teach the children about flora and fauna, a hands-on experience that Mr. Hemington believed would leave a lasting impression. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, panic had set in at the school as the group failed to return. What began as a day of learning transformed into a decades-long enigma that gripped the nation. The headmaster, Mr. Clarkson, alerted local authorities when the group missed their scheduled return. Police officers and concerned parents scoured the nearby woods, joined by volunteers and search dogs. Hope flickered briefly when the dogs picked up a scent, but it led only to a discarded ribbon, one that belonged to a student. Despite an exhaustive search lasting weeks, the woods yielded no further clues. The tragedy hung heavy over the community, and symbolic funerals were held for the missing children and their teacher. Yet, no remains were ever found. For years, the mystery lingered, birthing legends and folklore. Some claimed to hear the cries of children on full moon nights. Others spoke of ghostly figures roaming the woods. The truth remained elusive until, 35 years later, a woman named Sophie Ryder appeared at the town police station. Disheveled and unrecognizable, she introduced herself as one of the missing students. Her return would unravel a chilling tale of survival and resilience. Sophie's sudden appearance was met with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. She looked far older than her 47 years, her face marked by hardship. Her clothes were outdated and tattered, evoking the era of her disappearance. Clutching a faded ribbon in her hand, she walked to the front desk and declared her identity. "I'm Sophie Ryder," she said, her voice firm, despite the tremor beneath it. "One of the students who went missing in 1988. I'm here to tell you what happened." The officer's initial disbelief was palpable, but the ribbon Sophie carried was identical to the one found during the search decades earlier. The police chief, who had been a rookie officer during the original investigation, recognized its significance immediately. Inviting Sophie into his office, he dusted off old case files and prepared to hear her story. Sophie's account was harrowing. She described the fateful day when their teacher led them into the woods. The group had been laughing and enjoying the sunny spring morning when disaster struck. A bear emerged from the underbrush, its sudden appearance triggering chaos. Mr. Hemington, trying to protect his students, led them to a nearby cave for safety. What began as a refuge quickly became a prison when the cave's entrance collapsed, trapping them inside. Sophie's voice trembled as she recounted the group's desperate attempts to escape. With no way out, the reality of their situation set in. The children's cries echoed in the cavern as Mr. Hemington tried to calm them. "He told us we had to stick together," Sophie said, her eyes glistening, "that we had to survive." The cave, it turned out, had once been a miner's refuge. The group discovered abandoned supplies, lanterns, pickaxes, and tinned food that sustained them in the early days. Water trickled from the cave walls, providing a vital lifeline, and they foraged for edible fungi to supplement their dwindling provisions. Despite their ingenuity, life underground took its toll. The absence of sunlight disrupted their sense of time, and illness claimed several of the children and eventually Mr. Hemington. Sophie's voice broke as she described burying their teacher in the cave, marking his grave with stones. "He kept us alive as long as he could," she whispered, "but even he couldn't fight the darkness forever." Over time, the surviving students adapted. They learned to navigate the cave's labyrinthine tunnels and relied on each other for strength. Sophie became a leader among the group, encouraging them to hold on to hope. It was this hope that led to their eventual escape. After years of searching, the group discovered a small hole in the cave wall, too narrow for most of them to traverse, but large enough to let in a faint glimmer of light. Over the years, they worked tirelessly to widen the passage using the rudimentary tools left behind by the miners. It was a painstaking process, but it gave them a purpose. "We knew it was our only way out," Sophie explained. "We had to try." Finally, after decades of effort, the passage was large enough for one person to squeeze through. Sophie, the smallest of the group, volunteered to go first. With the hopes of her classmates resting on her shoulders, she crawled through the narrow tunnel, emerging into the blinding daylight of a world she no longer recognized. The chief listened intently, his skepticism replaced by a growing sense of urgency. Sophie's story, corroborated by the ribbon and the details she provided, convinced him that the survivors were still trapped. Mobilizing a rescue team, he worked with experts to plan the operation. Sophie guided them to the cave, pointing out the hidden entrance and explaining the fragile conditions inside. The rescue operation was painstaking. Engineers worked to stabilize the cave while expanding the passage. Days turned into nights as the team labored to reach the survivors. Finally, after hours of careful excavation, they broke through to the main chamber. The scene that greeted them was haunting. The survivors, now adults, blinked against the light, their gaunt faces etched with disbelief and relief. The rescue team carefully escorted each survivor out of the cave. Medical personnel were on hand to assess their condition, and the community gathered to welcome them back. Cheers erupted as the last survivor emerged, their ordeal finally over. The survivors' return was a moment of catharsis for the town. Families embraced their long-lost loved ones, tears flowing freely. The town hall hosted a reunion event where the survivors shared their stories. Their accounts of resilience and camaraderie inspired all who listened. Sophie and her classmates became symbols of hope. Their story captured national attention, with media outlets broadcasting their miraculous survival. Donations poured in to support their recovery, and specialists volunteered to help them reintegrate into society. As the media frenzy subsided, the survivors began rebuilding their lives. Therapy sessions helped them process their trauma, and the town rallied around them, offering unwavering support. Sophie, once a symbol of tragedy, became a beacon of resilience. Reflecting on her journey, Sophie said, "We never stopped believing that we'd see the outside world again. That hope kept us alive." The story of the missing class of 1988 became a testament to the power of the human spirit. It reminded the world that, even in the darkest of times, hope can illuminate the path forward.